You ever go down a rabbit hole? Like, stumble across one minute detail on the internet and the next thing you know you were on the other side of a metaphorical tunnel, covered in metaphorical dirt and sweat with uncanny knowledge on a niche subject that you will never use again for the rest of your life? I did that. I just did that with bowling while looking into something else for another video, and now I am going to drag you through the mud with me. Why? Because I can, and because bowling has a weirdly interesting history. Come with me while I selectively recap the parts that I found most captivating, largely focusing on how the modern version of the game came to be. Way back, we're talking when your others were born, aka sometime between 5200 and 3200 BC, we find the earliest evidence of a bowling-esque game in Egypt. Based off ancient relics, their version was a lot different, but there was enough similarities to deem this bowling's ancestor. This variant seems to have consisted of a limestone lane with two players on opposite sides and a hole in the center of it. Each player was equipped with two bowling balls, a small and a big one. One would try to fit their small bowl in the bowl hole to score points, but the other player would roll their big bowl to deny the small bowl from said bowl hole. The winner was whoever got their bowl in the hole more. Seems simple, right? Jump several thousand years into the future and we see bowling spread its wings to other lands. More specifically, Germany showed the earliest signs of bowling outside of Egypt around the year 300 AD. Their version of the game was, once again, much different than what we know today. They called it Kegel, and no, I am not referring to the exercise used to strengthen the floor of your pelvis. No, instead this game involves strengthening your faith. You see, monks back in the day used to carry little wooden clubs. They proceeded to come up with the idea of setting them up like pins, using them to represent heathens, and then rolling stones at them. Strike them down and you are cleansed of your sins, or as I hope they put it back in the day, knock a pin, absolve your sin. Thankfully, I put it on merch though. And by that, I mean, I didn't. I'm not a sellout yet. That's like 8 more steps down the YouTube pipeline. So time passes and the game continues to evolve, as evidence of 9-pin bowling can be found all the way back to Henry II's reign of England circa 1133 to 1189 AD. For context, this is big because 9-pin is still played in parts of the world today. Furthermore, it's the closest relative to 10-pin bowling, which is the predominant version of the game in the US. Since most of you seem to be from there based off my analytics page, I'm gonna consider 10-pin to be modern bowling and work towards how it became big. Blah blah blah, this is getting boring, but hey, let me fix that. Much better. Anyways, time passes and the Germans run into a problem. You see, bowling had started to become associated with gambling, which you are gonna see as a reoccurring thing, and this is one of the earliest signs of their budding relationship. Hell, the problem was so bad in some areas that the towns of Cologne and Berlin made it illegal for citizens to bet more than 5 shillings on a game. I don't know how much that is now, but I feel like with inflation that's like 1 Chipotle bowl's worth of food back then. Definitely a scientific and accurate cost estimate right there. 1366, back to England. Bowling's dark era continues as King Edward III bans the game. Why? Because he sucked at it and was butthurt. Nope, actually the real reason was he deemed it a threat to national security during the 100-Year War, as he thought it was distracting his military from archery practice. And because he sucked at it. Shortly after the war ended, the ban gets reversed by Henry VII in 1455. The good times keep rolling as back in Germany, Martin Luther, usually known for being the catalyst of the Protestant Reformation, also reforms bowling, establishing the standard number of bowling pins to 9 during the 16th century. Up till now, the game came in many varieties, and honestly still after this it would, but this helped bring some order to the chaos. Back to England! Not all the Henrys are cool though. In 1541, Henry VIII commits a despicable act and brings back the ban, this time only applying it to the lower class. Those who violated the law would have to pay a fine of 6 shillings and 8 pence. There were technically 2 workarounds to this rule. 1, commoners could still play on Christmas Day in the presence of their master, and 2, you could also buy a license to own a bowling green, but it was paywalled, coming in at a £100 price tag. How nice of Mr. Henry VIII to leave these loopholes. What a swell, definitely not hypocritical guy. Did I mention he also constructed a bowling alley for himself? Not too long after this, England's royalty throws another gutter ball, as Queen Mary removes the Christmas game exception. Despite this, the game seemed to live on as there are records of bowling continuing afterwards. Knowing that, it becomes way easier to understand how in 1618, James I tried to ban bowling and several other sports again. This time attempting to ban them from being played on Sundays. However, this was quickly revoked due to intense Puritan protests. A couple years later, his son Charles I forces the return of his father's work, the Book of Sports, re-invoking the Sunday ban. But damn it, the people love bowling, as Puritans burned the article in 1643. Probably because they knew it was our divine right to bask in buffalo chicken dip and drink cheap beer as we binge watch NFL Red Zone every Sunday for eternity. Now, why did the British keep seeing the need to ban bowling? Aside from the whole brief wartime stint, the game seemed to have a really big association with gambling. Like the legislators of Berlin and Cologne, many other lawmakers deemed this relationship so bad that they felt it risked the general public's wallet. Seems a tad hypocritical though, given how members of the upper class weren't immune to these gambling woes themselves. Take Sir Edgar Hungerford, for example, who not only has one of the most uppity names I have ever heard, but also had to hand over his entire estate as a result of losing a game in 1648. I mean, just imagine the conversation he had with his family after that.
Hi, honey, how was work?
Good. Hey, remember how you said you wanted to downsize before?
I never said that.
I lost the house on a game of bowling. Are you mad?
You lost it to bowling?
Elsewhere in the world, bowling is spreading. One noticeable place it makes its way to is the US during the 17th century on the back of the many immigrants who make their way there. However, they played many different variations, but for 10 pins to rise, 9 pins needs to be around because the game eventually evolves into it. Come 1819, we see the first reference to 9 pin in America literature in Rip Van Winkle. This tale by Washington Irving is not a memoriam to someone called Van Winkle, but rather the tale of a farmer who stumbles across a bunch of drunk dwarfs playing the game and proceeds to drink with them until he becomes so intoxicated he falls into a 20-year coma.
You're watching Brain Rot, and I'll be right back.
Here they come, doing Jack Daily. It's lots and lots of funky fungi, the greatest collection of fungi DVDs we have ever offered. Through this special YouTube offer, you can get 2 DVDs for the price of 1. You'll get to see big fungi, small fungi, sticky, silky, and fluffy fungi. Even fungi that aren't fungi. Old fungi, new fungi, fast fungi, slow fungi, smoking fungi, even fungi that grows on end. How can you beat that? It's lots and lots of funky fungi. You can order now to receive a free bonus CD of Decomposer's compositions.
Must be 18 years or older. Call 888-888-8888. Parents, call 888-888-8888. Satisfaction guaranteed. That's 888-888-8888 for lots of funky fungi.
Okay, we're back. Wake up.
Between the States and England, we start seeing some of the early signs of 10-pin bowling. Some notable examples being this painting from England in 1810 depicting a man bowling with the 10-pin setup. This auction notice in Ipswich, England, mentioning it in 1828. And US newspapers referencing it in the 1820s. However, the beginning of 10 pins' rise to dominance in America seems to be the result of the US banning its cousin, 9 pins, in multiple states in 1841. Like many lawmakers before them, they did so out of fear of the game's strong ties to gambling. I personally suspect they were afraid of the game encouraging dwarfs to gather around and get drunk, but I digress.
Anyways, the importance of this is the law had a loophole. Adding a pin to the setup, boosting it to 10 stick fellas in total, was still legal. The popular belief online seems to be that this was the catalyst for 10-pin becoming the standard bowling variation in the States. Meanwhile, across the pond, the Brits finally decide they have had it with bowling bans and undo any laws against it in 1845. Some time passes and 10-pin has now been established in the US. But despite there being a standard bowling variation, there still wasn't standard rules or equipment. As a result, you could be playing two very different games depending on where you were at. In 1875, the NBA comes along and tries to bring order to the chaos until they remember, oh wait, we manage basketball. In reality, there was actually another NBA called the National Bowling Association that failed to standardize bowling in the States. Bowlers remained determined though, so in 1895 they formed the American Bowling Congress, otherwise known as the ABC, to do what their predecessor failed. They succeed, finally giving the country standard rules and equipment for bowling. They even go as far as tracking accolades recorded by players at their sanctioned alleys, and starting a reoccurring national tournament in 1901. A bonus feature to this was that these tourneys had guaranteed payouts, which were added in hopes of encouraging players playing for money to try and acquire it through ABC competitions as opposed to gambling. The goal here was to dissociate the sport from betting and boost its public image. During the 1900s, we see a lot of technical evolution to the game. For starters, up till then, bowling balls were primarily made of wood. However, in 1905, the first rubber balls hit the market. By the end of the century, we start seeing them made from modern material, with plastics, urethane, and reactive resin models arising during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, respectively. The automatic pin setter is invented in 1941 and starts getting mass-produced a decade later. Prior to this, alleys just hired kids to reset the pins, so this really spared them of grueling labor. Right? That was pretty good, right? You see what I did there? And in 1967, the first automatic scorer debuts, saving bowlers the hassle of having to track their points and unknowingly providing a home for those goofy little animations we all know and love decades later. The exact year those animations released, however, is unknown. What dragged me down this rabbit hole in the first place was my search for when they were released and who made them. I have long desired to explore a niche internet detective mystery, and damn it, since I loved these animations growing up, I figured this would be a great one to pursue. Alas, while I have a couple leads, I have nothing definitive at the moment, so I figured I should make a video in the meanwhile. Even if I don't find the answers I'm looking for, I'll probably make a video sharing what I discovered at some point. But for now, this is gonna have to do. As always, if you see anything I screwed up, comment below and I'll leave a pinned note correcting my mistakes. Until next time, adios muchachos.